Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have an incredible guest who's just a few cities away from me. It's always wonderful when we get to meet people who are close by. Charity Brown. Charity Brown is the author and business coach of Create Clarity with Charity. You almost think you invented that in person, on purpose that way. Anyways, and CEO of the Now Answer Group. She has just created tons and tons of success with over 2 decades of experience orchestrating corporate audits, streamlining operations, and scaling revenue. So she really goes into companies and, well, this is what she used to do. I don't know how much she does now, but she's shifting industries, which is why she's on the podcast. But she's very, very knowledgeable in her skills and crafts. And really why we're on the Legacy podcast is how did she get here? Why is she here? And where's she headed? That's what we're talking about. All the accolades will be discussed probably tangentially. Of the main thing is why is she here and how she get here? And how could you be more like Charity? So with that intro, Charity, no, honestly, I'm so excited. We had a great conversation about a week and a half ago. And I said, hey, you just need to be on my podcast. There's too much to share. And I want to share it with the world. So go for it, Charity. Tell us a little bit about where you came from as far as like your early lifestyle, growing up with your family, and how did you get to where you are and where are you headed?
Yeah. Hi. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for having me. I am delighted to be here. And yeah, so, I was one of those kind of strange birds as a kid. I always felt like I had entrepreneur drive. I was coming up with like the newest, lemonade stand or tie-dye boutique in front of the coffee shop selling my goods. And, when I'd be spending time in my room, I would be drawing pictures of my shopping mall and all my stores and everything and playing Office. Like, don't ask me why, but I think it's in my DNA. But yeah, but my business career didn't start out that way. Obviously, I was kind of stuck in the the societal matrix of, getting a college degree, doing what I thought my family wanted me to do, following suit. I wasn't really that great a student, like in my younger years. I got my GED and I went to beauty school because I couldn't handle high school in my small town. It was just not effective education for me. And so I literally graduated early and went to beauty school. And that was my first business. I started a salon when I was 19 called After 7. And I had my little setup there. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be independent. I can make $80 an hour. And back then, 1990, let's see, 5. Wow. Okay. You'll know how old I am if I tell you what year that was. But anyway, so it was a long time ago. And, just didn't know anything about business because I just went to beauty school. They don't teach you about, income statements and balance sheets and marketing and books of business and effective marketing and, establishing your brand. And, they just don't go into any of that. So I was just pretty much trying to tread water and not drown, and keep on top of paying my bills at a young age. And so I realized it wasn't really working out that great for me because I was always struggling with money. I love that I was in my creative and that I could, really enjoy my clients and, having my own shop and the flexibility of that. But it wasn't enough for me. So I started going to a local community college and started a business 101 class. And right then, like, I knew I had found something. Like, I found my best friend. I found my first professor. I got an A. I thought, oh, business is what I need to be doing. I need to help other beauticians in business. So let me learn more. And so I just like full throttle, like, got a triple degree. Like, I became like a 12-year long student. I got a degree in business administration and accounting, and I started a freelance business while I had the salon. And then I ended up just doing that because I had enough clients to kind of sustain. And I was in a small town, so there really wasn't a lot to do other than go to school. So it was kind of like my passion was being fueled. So that's how it all started. I mean, really, it was like humble beginnings. No one handed me the keys to my new restaurants. But from there, I ended up having several restaurants. I had a corporation that had five in Oregon. And then I had my own lottery facility and bar and burgers, brats, and brew. And it was right by the university. So we had did tailgaters. We were super popular. It was so fun. But it was a hard knock life. You know, the restaurant business has very small margins. You know, it has really, it's kind of like any business office on turbo because you can have up to, 300 clients a day because each customer is like a client. Either they're going to return and they're going to continue wanting to hang out there or they're not. So it's just like, a very dog eat dog world when it comes to restaurant biz. So I was in the business for a long time, though. I have hundreds of restaurants, clients, and golf club, golf courses, entertainment, hospitality, hotel chains. I got all deep into it when I moved and sold my restaurants, and then I started consulting for that industry. So yeah, that's kind of like why I'm here today. Like, I went through all that. I started my now Answer Group firm coming out of corporate America. So I'd sold my restaurants and moved to Portland and started working for a high level hybrid consulting corp. And I was a interim CFO for like 10 years. So they placed me in maybe like 20 or 50 different franchises, restaurants, hotels, chains. And so I got a lot of real great insight on big corp restaurant tourism. But it's really no different. So after that, I felt really confident. I can work for a nonprofit agency. I can work for a multi-million 9-figure corporation. I can do audits. I can do acquisitions. I can help scale, get money. I got several businesses for $5-10 million. So I was like, I need to take this to the people that really matter to me, like other entrepreneurs like myself that were self-made. Because back in the day, there wasn't these resources that we have now, and that's all about like your legacy project here, right? It has a lot about legacy and being able to create a better road for others and a path that has tools on it that usually take people 10,000 years or 10,000 hours to figure it out and 10 years. And then maybe even then they won't have the right magic formula for success. So that's why I wrote the book, hence Create Clarity with Charity, and the podcast, The Evolutionary Entrepreneur, and my e-programs that help small business owners scale to multiple millions of dollars.
Awesome. Hey, I know it's a lot to like kind of condense into a very small time frame, but I appreciate you sharing it. I'm going to dig in here. So at what point do you feel like you first really decided you didn't like school? Like, how old were you when your first thought was like, no, this is like I'm not meant for this system? Because I think it's a system. It's great for a lot of people. And although I'm not a big proponent of education, public education, I understand that there's a lot of people who value it and they want to be there, and that's fine. But I think inside people's heart, they decide that it's not for them. And that happens at different ages for everybody. And then some people act on it and some people bury the feeling. So walk me through, what was that like, realizing, this is not my system, because it changed and it was your system on the higher education. So walk me through that mindset process.
Yeah, well, honestly, I was always thinking I like school for the wrong reasons. I think even since like first and second grade, it was always about like what outfit I was going to wear, or like what boy we had a crush on, or who we're going to hang out with on recess. Like, I was never really into school, grade school, middle school, high school. And then you get even more awkward and weird in like middle school, right? Like everyone's developing and they're getting their new teeth or boobs or whatever. So it's kind of like, you're overweight, you're funny looking, you're halfway grown up, you're not. Like, it's just a weird time. And kids are mean. So it was like always ended up being kind of like a fight. The older that I got, I felt like I had to fight for my respect, or that I had to fight for my freedom. Like, you're right. Like, the system is broken. And that's exactly why I created the Now Business Academy, is because it's literally better than a master's degree. Even though I was very passionate about learning in my college career, like, I literally was a professional student and I vetted out and got A's and was like, on the dean's list, and Phi Beta Kappa, Alpha Beta Sigma is like, I'm not stupid. I'm not slow. Just because I didn't want to finish high school doesn't mean I'm a moron. Right. So it was like, I really just needed to get out of the mad cycle that wasn't working for me. And I needed to start my business, and no one was listening.
Right. Well, I think this is interesting, because you mentioned like all the little things that you did as a business owner even before, but you say you liked school for the wrong reasons. I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because I think that's the reason, all the reasons that you like school, those skills are ultimately learning how to associate with people, learning how to fit in or not fit in, learning what group you want to fit in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're developing our self-identity, and I literally had identity crisis as a young child. So I really was kind of like, I think, my opinion about school when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way to the age I was 16, 17, changed drastically when I started paying for my education and when I started taking the classes I wanted to take and do things that I was interested in. Even though it was rigid, and like, I now know that no matter how many degrees I have, my real business acumen and all the skills that I've learned actually being a business owner had never been taught to me in school, no matter how many degrees I got.
Isn't
like, you do not.
That's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah, no. And then it's just a realization I have $100,000 of debt, and I'm still like learning the real tools, So, I mean, that's why they say like the system is failing, and it is. So, and that's another part of my legacy project, implementing my programs and these after school programs for, the youth, and getting them the tools, what is the balance sheet and income statement. They should be able to read those by the time they're 15. They should be able to balance their checkbook and know what student debt means and know what debt means in general. Right? They need to know about what it takes to buy your first house, what it is, interest and compound interest, and how does that affect you later? Like the real stuff that they're just like, oh, P times R times T, price times rate times time, an exponential times year. Like that doesn't help when you're like financially illiterate. Like, it's just a formula. Who cares? Right.
Right. And there's no application to real life. So I grew up homeschooled, and we grew up from a book. Well, it's like a math course. I don't even know what to call it, called Ray's Arithmetic. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. If you haven't, highly recommend just looking it up and looking into it. But for the most part, it was all mental math, decimals, fractions, all of the things that a normal school child going through math would be like, oh my gosh, math is terrible. It's the worst. But they teach you from a young age how to do all of this in your head. And eventually they get into all of them are like real word problem real world problems that they're simulating. And we would have some of the questions that we would go down to the bank and be like, hey, do you understand how this works? Like, can you explain how this works? No, they didn't know how it worked. And it's like, this is ridiculous that our 12, 13, 14-year-old, myself and my brothers, we knew more about the math and the financial system than the bankers did. And it's like, that's a little silly.
It's still true. That's still true.
Yeah, it is. And it's insane. And so what's fascinating about that is when you start making money and you start coming into these realizations of, man, how is this going to impact? How is this going to change? It's important to have the relationships on the other side of that can mentor you and teach you and coach you. Because I agree with you in the one thing, I went to school as well. And what I learned in school versus what I learned outside of school, I've invested way more into my education and development outside of school than most people will ever invest inside of school. And yet there's still some sort of stigma. It's leaving now. Excuse me. It is leaving where if you don't have a degree, it's getting to the point where people don't really care. They actually care about what you know rather than your credentials.
But corporations and governmental jobs, that's all you need a degree for. Like I would never be where I am now if I didn't get the degree, because I would have never got inside to look at the framework of 9-figure corporations and the intricacies of how they work, and then realize it's exactly the same as a small business owner. Nothing changes. The numbers just get bigger.
Yep. More zeros on that. So I want to talk about this a little bit, because you mentioned that you were struggling for money. And this is a big problem. People think that money's hard. And so money is hard for them because they think it's hard for them. And then this happens with almost every successful person that I know. They went from not having a lot of money, then they go to having money, and they realize it's the same game, just with more zeros. And then that realization helps them be better in every area of their life. And I don't know why money is such a big hurdle for people. But once they realize that money is the same, when you're rich, it's just a few more zeros than being poor, but it's the same process, that it clears up other areas of their life that are important to them. Their relationships, their family relationships, their business relationships, their faith relationships, their relationship with themselves. Once they realize, oh, I've met somebody who's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and I've met somebody worth nothing, and they're actually just humans, right?
Yeah,
we're all humans.
Exactly.
And that frees up a lot of things. So talk to us about that transition of mindset that you went through.
Oh, it's huge. Like you literally need to change your mind. Like it's all in your head. So when you have money blocks, and that's part of the accelerator program I go through, you have to go through the foundational beliefs about money and what's stopping you from getting what you need, right? Instead of getting caught up in the belief about how hard it is to get it. So that's the thing, is being really crystal clear on your mindset and, what it is, the goals, the trend, and the steps to get there, and to believe that you can. Like it really is about the belief. So if you change your beliefs, you change your reality. So like a lot of us grew up feeling like, more money, more problems. Money's the root of all evil. Filthy loot, dirty money. You got to do something bad to get all that, or you're bad or you're mean if you have all that.
Or they actually hope that you they think, the number of times I've heard this, I want enough money, I never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. And so we radiate our own frequency, right? That's why it's called a currency. Current. We have a current frequency running through our body, just like any other energetic field that we have of energy, happiness. Money is just currency. So depending on what kind of current you have running through your brain, you're going to be setting yourself up for your relationship with money.
Mm-hmm. And then that transfers into your relationship with yourself and others. How did you feel like, because you got to see the inside of the corporate world, which is its own animal. Okay. How did you feel like having money again, I want to talk about these beliefs that people have that we want to get rid of. But the idea that having money, once you make it, then you become a different person, right? So you've seen people who had no money, came into money. You saw people who had no money, still have no money. And you've seen people who have always had money.
Yeah.
Okay. What determines, like, is there any consistency as far as how somebody chooses to conduct themselves towards the people around them?
Yeah, no, it's really about, I found that it has nothing to do with money. Okay. So people will like either love or hate themselves. They really have good relationships with others and a good relationship with themselves. They work on it and then they're happy. But a lot of people think and they base happiness on money instead of being happy and then having money. So it's really just, reverse engineering your mindset about money. So, whether it's a poor person that likes to live off the earth and camp out by the river and is just considered a bum, who's never had to worry about debt or a house note or any responsibility or any regard about money, be the happiest person and not have one problem, sleep well at night. And then you got Joe Schmo over here who has $10 million a year and wants to commit suicide and can't stand himself, right? Because that's kind of the people, a lot of my clients in my earlier days, nobody really signed up with me because everything was going well. They would sign up with me because they were having problems with their money. They couldn't get funding. They were getting the IRS called. The state was coming in, they're getting sued, whatever, right? So it was always kind of like this mad panic, chaos, fear factor, like my life depends on you, help me fix this kind of thing, a lot of dire urgency. But once it was fixed, everyone then just trusted me, but they may not have been happier. They just didn't have as many problems. But if through the process, because I got this a little later in life, the mindset piece to this, I was just more like a compliance, really strict, rigid, put in the box bean counter kind of person who just knew the rules and had good ties at the IRS and knew the foundation of good business. So it was more science to me. But later on in my career, like after corporate, it really turned into more of an art, a science, and then a transformation. So it's like an ecosystem. You kind of grow into it. It's better when you learn it young. That's why I want to put my programs in with these new graduates coming out of high school that don't have any direction or have a mindset or trained how to think about money or have a positive or negative experience with money, and then set themselves up for success. Because I've noticed out of the 500 students that I went through my program, that they are the ones that get through it and thrive and continue doing it and love it and are happy and excited. And like the sky's the limit. Actually, who said there's a limit? There is no limit. Like it's limitless once you stop letting your mind stop you. So it is about planning that and resonating that and believing that you can do it. It's all self-belief.
Right. I completely agree. And that's one of the things that when I was going through college myself, I'm grateful I had great teachers who helped me see the value in what I was learning, the little bit of college that I did go to, but understanding the actual impact of where to put the importance. And then I came at it from a neuropsychology perspective and then got into money. You came at it from the science of money and then got into the energy and the thought mindset and thought process. Completely different approaches. And what's funny is when we get into the crossover, it's like we all are figuring out the same things from different angles. But when you're going in, you're helping somebody who's in fear mode.
Mm-hmm. Lots of fear.
They're just like, we have to get this done. And you go in as an interim CFO to clean up their books. What percentage of those individuals who are running businesses, who are already, I'm going to say successful, obviously they wouldn't have you come in there in fear mode if they were really successful, but there's enough money that the IRS cares, if you don't make enough money, the IRS doesn't care about you. So there's a big enough problem. You say no, the IRS still cares even if you don't make money.
The IRS, the law still applies, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't know if they're going to spend time auditing small businesses, but they do. Believe me, I've been in several, even small restaurants, they came down with badges, flashing badges and stuff. So I've seen it all. So yeah, no, they do care. But the thing is that you're right. Like it depends on if it's like a proprietor who's the CEO who broke his back building that business, or her business. Is it the founder? Is it the person who cares about that business? Because I've been in rooms with, boardrooms where no one really gave a shit about the business. It wasn't really theirs. There's shareholders. There's another corporate office in Montana and one in New York. Like, they're just getting their paycheck. They're just getting their salary and their benefits. Like, do they really care? So that's where, because they could all be successful. What's successful? Oh, you make $250,000 a year salary. Oh, you have a wife and 2.5 kids and a nice house and a Ferrari. Oh, you must be happy and successful, right? No. Mm-mm.
Right. It's not the fulfillment. And so how many of those individuals that you went in to help, how many of them understood even the basics of how compound interest was affecting them? More on this, could be on the bigger side as well, but for sure on the small business side, understood income statements, understood profit and loss statements, understood balance sheets, to the point where they actually could make intelligent decisions, versus people who were just great technicians, but didn't really understand the financial side of what they were doing. They were playing.
The majority, I would say 80% of people don't really get it. Like, they know their job really well. They know what a net profit is, if they're at a profit, if the bank account's going up or down. Maybe in like bigger corp businesses, but if we're talking about like proprietorships, LLCs, 100 employees, 300 employees, not like the big corps, but the smaller business owners, sometimes maybe they're managers, so they appoint and delegate. You're the COO, you're the CFO, you're this, you're that. They expect these people to know all that, and then they just give them what they think they need. They're completely out of the loop at that point, right? They don't understand. Has anyone gone over the KPIs? I noticed this in big corporate, and I noticed this in small business. And I'm saying small business, 300 employees or less. Okay.
Right.
So that can be 15 to 20 million, but that's still considered small business in America. Mm-hmm. So, even like a CEO of a corporation or manufacturing company would look at reports. He better know his KPIs. Right? There's a $20 million revenue threshold. Maybe they're going for an acquisition. You need to know what those key numbers are. But a lot of times, everybody else has no clue what that is. So when they're entering all the info, they're doing everything in their department, and they're going running crazy. All they needed was a map and a little bit of guidance, and say, these are our targets. This is our goal, right? So in corporate America, there's not a lot of that kind of synergy and energy like they try to. Here's the boardroom, here's our reports. In a broad sense, but that's kind of what I wanted to bring to smaller business owners, especially people that are in the restaurateur business, or the agency owner, or the coach consultant, the person who's, running the show. If you just know 5 numbers and you keep an eye on them, then you won't go bankrupt. Or when you see a decline, you can make an adjustment so you don't lose $10,000 that month on ad spend or whatever.
Right. So let's talk about this, because we're going to pivot this conversation. What seems like not 180, but probably like a 45 to 90 degree angle here, because I want you to now talk about your business acumen. Because what you just said, if you guys go back and listen, push rewind, go back like 2 minutes, listen to that part, and then listen to the how we translate this into legacy. Because again, The money side, I think money is a really great scorecard. It's a really great tool to see how other areas of your life are being impacted or doing. But the same principles of success, they apply in every area of your life: your faith, your family, your fitness, your finance, which we've been talking about, and your money. And your fun. They apply everywhere. KPIs. How many of you guys know what KPIs stand for, right? Key progress indicators. Wouldn't you want key progress indicators in your faith and determining whether you're moving forward or backwards in your faith? What about in your family? Are you developing deeper relationships and developing a stronger family, or is your family falling apart? How about your fitness? Those KPIs are, I mean, you go talk to a fitness person, they're very specific about their KPIs. So talk about how the same structure of business and finance and what you've been talking about, how does that overlay into now what you're like into marketing or branding your legacy? Even if your legacy wasn't, your legacy is teaching this information, but like, what if my legacy is I want to be the best caregiver ever, or I want to be the best dog walker? It doesn't matter. Like, how do you translate the same skills and five numbers you have to look at into these other areas of your life?
Yeah. And that's the beauty. That is my legacy project, is the inner fitness program, that the 9 steps to inner freedom. Okay. Because we have to have our own kind of benchmarking system, take our own self inventory. Like, I'll apply all this to accounting and be like, stop. But no, it's seriously.
No, really though. I want you to. I want you to. Because this is. I'll be honest. I was listening to a podcast, I don't know, a while ago, and about 6 months ago, and they were making fun of people, i.e., myself. They didn't say my name, but they could have. When it was a health podcast, and I'm like, look, you can track every penny that goes in and out of your bank account, which I do, like meticulously. I track it all, but you can't track what's going in and out of your face hole. I'm like, that's a good point. In
and out of your what?
My face hole, my mouth, right?
Oh, unless you cook everything like me. If I can't spell it, I won't eat it.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like, I'm just eating anything. I don't care how many calories. I don't care if it's healthy. I don't care where it came from. I'm just like, rah, 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 whatever. I would never be that loose with my money, but I was that loose with my food. I was that loose with the TV. I was that loose with whatever. And it's like, look, you're either going to be intentional or you're not going to be intentional. And so although they were having a conversation about health, the same principle applied. So yeah, equate it to accounting, every area of your life. How do you tell if you're in a deficit or profit in your relationship?
Yeah. Yeah. I measure everything, literally. Like, that's what all of my programs to change your life or shift it, move the needle at all, measuring. First, find out where you're at. What's your current condition? Put a number on it, 1 through 5. How are you with your financial literacy? 1 through 5. How are you with balancing your checkbook? 1 through 5. How are you with understanding financial statements? 1 through 5. How are you with going to the gym? How are you with, drinking water daily? How are you with having, work-life balance? Give it a number, and then so you start tracking it. So that's the number one thing, is understand like your current condition, and then think about it. Okay, what if that 2 was a 5? How would I feel then? What if that 3 was a 5, or that 1 was a 3? Where would I be now? What would I be feeling then? So once you equate like a number to it, then you can work on it and you can track it, your success, because it's like getting a benchmark or a target or a goal, and quantifying it.
So how often, and again, I know that from a financial perspective, it's very helpful to have, you can look at all your own numbers all day long, and good for you. Sometimes you get delusional looking at your own numbers, and you get conditioned to think that some of the numbers, they're not that bad. Or complacent. You think that you're so used to looking at your own industry or your own portfolio that when something is hurting, you're like, it's not that bad relative to whatever. And so changing your perspective as far as what you're relating things to, what's the value of having somebody else come in, like you used to come in as a CFO, having somebody else come into your life in these other areas of your legacy, and they audit your legacy based on their impression of it, rather than, don't ask me anything. What do you think of me? What do you think of Sam? What was your first impression? What do you think of my online presence? What do you think? Like, if all you had was to make an impression off of what you've seen, where would it be? Because that sometimes, for me, I believe, if I allowed somebody else to assess me, my scores are probably going to be less in some areas, but it might be surprising how many of those scores are actually higher than you give yourself credit for, which means your legacy, the mission, the passion that you're trying to convey is actually transferring better in some areas than you think.
Mm-hmm. And that's why coaching and mentors come in. And that's my legacy. That's what my book is about on my podcast, is getting a coach and a mentor. Because you can't do it alone. You're right. Because we're very self-critical. Either we're our worst critic or we're lying to ourselves, yeah. Right? So
there's a healthy balance between the two. It's like the things that you like about yourself, you're probably just going to be like, yeah, it's okay. It's not a big deal. But then the things that you're working on, you're your worst critic and you don't give yourself credit. And there has to be a mental balance in between that. So how do you help somebody through that who's either too critical on one area of their life and not critical enough on the other area? How do you coach or mentor somebody through those complex emotions and thought processes?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the one thing. You have to be true to thyself. So you want to coach with someone. Like, I have lots of mentees, ex-military or getting out of the military, where they're very, very self-critical. I mean, they just came from, 12 years in the Marines. So, you got to like rekindle the fire within and find out what it is. Number one, what makes you happy? Like, finding somebody who's being self-critical and kind of in that spiral of doom and gloom or chaos within, and not being able to even see themselves in a light of something better, is to bring them back to their center and saying, okay, let's get real. Like, what, if you could do anything, what would it be for fun? Like, what do you like to do? A lot of people are like, so wrapped up in, well, I'm a student, I'm a mom, I'm taxi mom, I love going to games, I love taking my kids to practice, right? Or I love cooking because that's what I have to do. But then when you start kind of breaking them down a little more, you start getting into what really makes you happy, joyful, and free. What really makes you feel invigorated and hopeful for tomorrow, or like you just, saw your old time friend from way back and you're just exhilarated, right? So a lot of us lose ourselves in life because of the pressures of life. So it's very common. It's actually more common. People have this self-critical and kind of, negative mindset than people that are like, oh, I'm so amazing. I love my life. I don't care. I only have $200 in the account, but I'm cool. But a lot of times they're also lying to themselves and they have underlying problems they just don't want to address. And that's the main thing. Why people don't get coaches and mentors is because they are hiding from being real with themselves and they're afraid. There's like this fear factor of exposing themselves to themselves. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to get through that, you have to have a framework. And so my framework, the Inner Fitness, 9 Steps to Inner Fitness, was designed by a Zen monk, Alan Knight, who is my coach for like many, many years. He also has a Soulmate Revolution, and he does how to go from shy and timid to like extraordinary speaker. He has different programs. He's in Canada, and we spend a lot of time together. And so I white label his 9 Steps to Inner Freedom. He figured this out when he was in the Zen monastery, and he started finding out what really is happiness. Is there such thing? What is really feeling good inside? Like, when are we all going to be happy with ourselves and our lives, right? Because no matter what, some people be like, it's just crap, no matter what I do. But it's all those negative reaffirming beliefs and comments that we make to ourselves that continue perpetuating this negative reality. So once people start figuring out, oh, I'm the one who had the power the whole time. Oh, I've been looking for my soulmate. I'm so silly. It was me the whole time. Duh. Like, so it's like a shift in like perspective. Like, okay, are you going to invest in yourself? Do you care enough about yourself and your happiness to say, I'm going to hire this person to take me through this 9-step program that's going to help transform the way I feel about my life and about my purpose, and really get dialed into what's important to me. When people are ready to invest, they are ready. But to get them there could take 30 years. It depends on how bad you want it.
Right. No, I completely agree on how bad you want it. And to say, call back to something earlier said that like we all get to choose our reality and choose our perspectives. And this is right in line with that each of us get the wonderful opportunity to brainwash ourselves. And sometimes brainwashing's gotten a bad rap, saying, oh, well, you've been brainwashed. Dude, I try and brainwash myself every day, wash out all the negative crap, and then put in the things that I actually want in there. I would rather clean the plate off and then only put on the plate what I want on the plate than always just be eating off of the same dirty plate and having all the same crap piled on and piled on and piled on. If you're not brainwashing yourself, somebody else is brainwashing you. And
it's usually society and all your peers, everyone you surround yourself with, everyone that you feel like you care about what they think. Because one of the biggest steps is to stop caring about what everyone thinks and do you. And that's what I tell like my clients is, the number one most important person right now is you. So no matter how insignificant Joe Blow thinks you are, or Susie, you need to really just do what's best for you. And as a mom, I know how hard that is. It's easier now to say it now that, my daughter's 23, I'm empty nesting. I'm like, I got my life back. I can do me for once. Hey, but when I was, in school with my restaurants and my accounting business and being a mom and getting pulled 9 different ways, 15 different employee problems, 5 new clients to load, you're like, I don't have time to think about me. Are you kidding? So, it is all about timing. It's a divine timing. When you are ready, you will hear the message, you will know. And so that's another thing, is to just always constantly take one more step closer if you're really interested in loving and adoring your life and really living your soul purpose and really committed to happiness. It can be a lonely road, because once you decide, all your other friends are going to fall off. All the drinking buddies and the people that kept you stuck and all the people that were MFing you behind your back and creating this low self-esteem and the self-critical self-talk. As soon as you stop doing all that, all the people that were your secret haters all fall off. And then now you're on your own path. And then it's kind of lonely. And then you're like, oh, I want to go back to my haters, but I love me more. So you kind of got to like, I literally need to change my life. It's not just, I need to stop MFing myself in my head all the time because I'm stressed out. No, it's really like, I need to change the people I'm around, the way I'm thinking, and my intention for everything I'm doing. What is the outcome of this? How do I want to feel? Where do I want to be? Who do I want with me? Why? Like get down into the things that really matter.
And I think that something you mentioned earlier is also really important, is having a framework to determine things. My wife and I, we're watching the show. It's called, I don't know what it's called actually, Hoarders. Basically, it's on Netflix. They're helping people clean out all their hoarder houses. And one of the things that they do is they say, look, you're in complete control of the situation. We're not going to do anything you don't want us to. But what we're going to do is we're going to build a 10 commandments board here that everybody on site is going to follow. So you're in control. You get to determine what the 10 commandments are for you. So Charity's 10 commandments of her life are, and then when we need to make an adjustment, we're going to say, hey, can we add this commandment over here? So if anything, one of the options was like, hey, if it has rat pee and poop on it, can we just say it's going to the garbage, right? Because before the lady wants to like pick through everything. Like, hey, can we just say This will speed up the job. If anything that is damaged goes to the trash. Can we agree on that? Yes, that's a commandment. Great. We just eliminated half of the stuff out of our life because we now have a framework to determine whether or not something needs to be in our life. And if we don't get a framework that we are on board with, or build a framework that we are on board with and that we're comfortable with, and then apply that framework, it's going to be really difficult. But once you decide the framework, and you say, this is how I'm going to be treated. This is how I'm going to be loved. This is what I expect of the people around me. And you build that framework, it's really easy to determine who's allowed in and who's not. What type of things are allowed in your life and what's not. What type of behaviors are you going to participate in and what you're not. Because once you have the framework, which are your own commandments, they're not anybody else's commandments for you. You might be able to, like she did, she white labeled this monk's 9 steps, right? You can go white label Jesus Christ 10 commandments if you want. You can go white label whatever you want, doesn't matter. But once you adopt a creed, you have to follow the creed that you adopted. And once you do, it makes life so much easier to say, this is my framework. I'm not breaking it. If you like my framework, come coach with me, come mentor with me. If you cannot accept my framework, then you're not a good client. You're not a good partner. You're not that you're not good, but we wouldn't work well together. That's a better way of saying it. You could still be a great person in your own framework, but we wouldn't work well together. And understanding when to say,
put a Muslim and a Christian, like they're the same framework, the pillars of,
right. A lot of them similar. They have a few differences that say, maybe they don't want to be in the same boat, but they're pretty close. I mean, if you read their holy scriptures, they're both
very close. Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah. I studied religion a lot in college. And faith was always a big part of my family. My grandma was an evangelist and a triathlete and would run around the world and pastor. So I always had that firm belief that there's something bigger than me. Okay. So just self-belief, I think I lost my self-belief, but I always believed in the man upstairs. I always believed that I was on a path, even though I may have doubted myself a lot and I was really mean to myself and I forgot about myself and I ditched what really mattered to me because I lost sight. And I think a lot of times in life, when you have kids and family and life catches up to you, that it is hard not to lose yourself sometimes. And then to have a mechanism or a process to come back because it metamorphosizes it. It continues. I do it every 6 months. I do the 9 steps to recalibrate my next 9 months or my next 6 months because I believe in self-mastery. I believe in always, constant, never-ending improvement. We can always refine. No one ever knows everything. We're never going to be all 100% completely happy. There's always going to be needing to be shifts and changes and metamorphosize with the growth process, right? We're all growing. I never want to stop growing. So I always have to change. I always have to fix something. There's something else that's not exactly working out or right or feel, so.
Well, and your desires change too. It might have been the right thing at the right time, but then as something changes in your life, then you're realizing you need to either drop something or gain something to optimize the fulfillment based on where you're at. And that could be in your diet, that could be in your faith, that could be in your finances, it could be anything. Things shift. And as they shift, are you agile enough to shift? And do you have a framework to assess the shifting? And when to shift. Like you said, if you can, what are the 5 things in business that you would say, if you know these 5 numbers, you can make the levers? You mentioned earlier, there's 5 numbers.
Oh, the KPIs?
Yeah. What are the 5?
In general?
Yeah, just in general, obviously, there could be more specific, but.
Yeah. So your gross profit margin percentage KPI, your cost of goods percentage KPI, your labor distribution KPI, your G&A overhead, and your net profit margin. So
just to, I know that not everybody knows all these, but when you use acronyms, it's even harder. So for the people who don't know what a G&A is, what is that?
General admin, kind of like overhead, office space, supplies, stuff like that.
Right. So when you have those 5 numbers, those apply in every area of your life. It's not all dollar signs, but in her, like she mentioned, put a number by all of those. Is it 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever your metric is? Put a metric on it and start tracking those numbers. And if all you did is once a month sat down with yourself at the end of the month, I wrote a whole journal about this called the Fulfillment Journal, right? I say I wrote it. I wrote some introduction explaining how I wanted you to use it. I have some videos up explaining how I want you to use it. And then it's a journal. So you actually go through it.
Perfect.
But part of the journal is specifically this. At the beginning of every month, you write down in the areas, 5 areas, faith, family, fitness, finance, fun, what fulfills you for 20 minutes on each section. You don't let your pencil come off the page. What fulfills you? And then once you've identified what fulfills you, then every day of the month, you go schedule in, you take something off of those lists and you schedule it in. And then you write down what are your 3 objectives for the day in the morning. And then you write down at the end, did you accomplish your 3 objectives? And then how did the experience of fulfillment go? And then next time you go to participate in that activity, what could make it more fulfilling? What's important there is I didn't ask, and I don't ask in the journal, what was wrong with it. I don't want you to think anything was wrong with it. I don't even want your mind going there. I want you to think, what could make this even better? So the whole structure of your mind energy is going only into what could make this better. How could this be better? How could I improve? Everything is geared towards improvement. There's not a negative part of the journaling process. It's all positive journaling. Mm-hmm. What fulfills me, not what doesn't fulfill me. What does fulfill me? Schedule it in. How did it go? What could make it better next time? So we're writing into our existence how we're going to experience that the next time we experience that experience, event, thought, feeling, sensation.
Yeah, and writing things down is number one. Like I always teach people, like take it out of your mind, which is in the 4th and 5th dimension, because it's all in our thoughts in our head, and we just spinning it around up there with all the other stuff we got going on, so it can get convoluted and distorted. But once you take it out of your head and you put it on a tangible piece of paper that's like real, you can touch it, you can look at it, you can smell it, you can rip it up if you want. Now it's in this dimension. It's no longer just an idea swarming around in our head. It's literally concrete. Now you got a number by it and you wrote it down. Like, okay, you're being real with yourself. Now you're telling your subconscious mind, I'm serious about this. And that's what it takes. Quit, being wishy-washy with your life and just keep thinking about all the things you want to do or talking about it all the time. That's what people do. They love to talk about all the stuff they're going to do, or talk about the stuff that they want to change, or think about it and lay up all night long thinking about it. And then they wake up, life happens the next day. They forgot all the great things that they were thinking about. But if they got up and they wrote that down, they would be like 10 light years ahead of themselves and be able to follow through better and really, conquer their goals. So writing it down is so key. Giving it a number, quantifying it another, going back and revisiting again and writing another number down means you are so serious that you are not going to take no for an answer, and that you're determined to succeed and to change that aspect. And you will notice the numbers will change after 30 days. They always do.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm curious, 2 things. Where's the best, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, get your, I want to say pick your brain, right? She has a lot of free content out there. You should go be an active participant in the free resources so that when you actually do reach out to her and talk to her and get coached by her, you can actually go with substance and ask questions that are going to actually move the needle for you. If you just...
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, free. I have like 10,000 views a day on my IGTV. Awesome. I have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank on my YouTube. I have CEOs. I have small business owners. There's so much value in my podcast and on my show, Create Clarity with Charity. You can Google it. Create Clarity with Charity. The book will probably pop up, but really going to my YouTube, Charity Brown Now, and then my Instagram, Charity Brown Biz, Charity Brown Biz. That's my personal branding. That's my legacy projects. If you want more like consulting on how to get $250,000 of business credit, how to optimize your financial statements, and go to nowanswergroup.com. That's the business. But for coaching, mentorship, free content. That's all the Charity Brown Biz stuff.
Awesome. I love it. So final question here. It's my favorite question to hear the answer to. But if in 6 generations from now, your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, they're sitting around a table discussing your life and the impact you had, what do you want them to be saying about great-great-great-great-grandma Charity and the life that the impact she had?
Yes. That I was just full of love and that I really wanted to see a change in this lifetime that I was in, and that I put my heart and soul into changing it, and that we literally changed the world one person at a time just by implementing self-love.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm so grateful for your time. And if any of you guys want to reach out to her, please just go follow her. If you want to leave a review on the podcast, also do that. We'd love that. More people get to hear it. And if you just need to send it to somebody, there's a share link. Share it, send it, say, hey, look, you need to listen to this. I'm grateful for you, Charity, and for your willingness to come on and spend even more time with me, picking your brain. It's been incredible. And I'm so grateful you got to share this with the world.
Thank you, Sam. You're the awesome one who's doing all the work behind the scenes. Believe me, I know how much work it takes to do a show and a podcast. So thank you for the invite. I value and appreciate everything you're doing, because you also have that a program or a book. I think I saw
nine pillars to build a meaningful legacy.
Yes, 9 pillars to build a legacy. Love it. That's key. I think there's something with the 9s these days. So.
Must
9
be.
steps, 9 pillars, cloud 9, whatever. We're going there.
No, it's incredible, but super excited for everybody to hear this. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.